So, welcome, lovely to see you. This is part of a series called Encounters, which was invented or inaugurated by Godela, Vice Sussex, who is here. And a good 10 years ago, this is the 24th encounter of an author and a translator. And I counted 6 of them were Austrians, not that it matters, but since the Austrian Cultural Forum. And I myself am the Austrian component of the center here, which is made up of various centers, and the Bachmann Center for Austrian Literature and Culture is one of them, whereas Godela represents the bigger German part. I thought it's worth mentioning. These encounters have been through COVID, but ever since only online. So it's very nice to see you. And we are very lucky to have our numbers boosted by a handful of Lektorinnen who happen to be here. 3 of them from Ireland, I saw, but you made your way here anyway. So that's really, really lovely. And I welcome you all. I will introduce our speakers and then open for now. So Ursula Knoll has a really, really interesting biography. So I'll say a few things and I might make mistakes because I looked you up, you know. So Ursula is both a writer and an academic. She studied Germanistic, gender studies and Jewish studies in Vienna and also in Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan. Now I saw it's called Kyrgyzstan, but in my mind it was always Kyrgyzstan. But she's also an academic. She was at a research project at the University of Vienna on post-colonial and queer studies. And at the same time, a member of a playwright collective called Wiener Bergstätten, Wiener Wortstaetten. And at the Austrian Cultural Forum in New York, 2 of her plays were produced as staged readings. One was called The Road to Happiness, a dark new comedy about relationships. And I quote, eine Hetero-Schmonzette, frei nach Frau Goebbels, die auch durch den Abend führt. And the second performance was called Eurostar, a road movie as a chamber play, where Stefan Zweig and Josef Roth return as ghosts to the Europe of 2020. You can see this online still. I thought that was very interesting. And Ursula also wrote a play with Kaśka Brila called Salonfähig, not to confuse with Elias Hirsch's almost bestseller Salonfähig. So did he steal your title? Or pure coincidence, probably. I think coincidence. Yeah. But I thought that was interesting. And Ursula also had on the academic side a fellowship at the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, where she wrote her dissertation on NS-Täterinnenbilder, so perpetrators in literature. And she was also for 3 years Lektorin in Prague. So Lektionen in dunkler Materie is her first novel, but I heard you're working on your second now. And you also have a broad job at a publisher. Right? Yes. Yeah. And Ruth Martin is a fantastic freelance literary translator. She has translated a wide range of novels, short stories, non-fiction, and children's books. She studied English and European literature, but then wrote her PhD on Kafka. Isn't it?
Yeah, right here. I mean, not in this room, but you know.
But she has been translating fiction since 2010. Austrian writers, Josef Roth, Michael Köhlmeier, also Hannah Arendt, Volker Weidemann, and most recently, Drei Kameradinnen, as Sisters in Arms, by Shida Bassiar, which sounded really interesting. And she has also taught translation at the University of Kent, where they're going to close modern languages now as we speak.
It's not my fault.
No, but that's the country we're living in at the moment. And she was also, and she has received the Warwick Prize for Women in Translation for the co-translation with Charlotte Collins of Nino Haraptishvili's The AIDS Life, which is a very long book. It was quite a piece of work. And she has broad experience of working with publishers in the UK and US. and to do readers' reports and sample translations. For us, she's done Daniel Visser, Ursula Knoll, and Elias Hirschl, so we're old acquaintances by now. For those who do not speak German, I think there are not many, there are English translations of what, does anybody need that?
Are they the same ones that were online?
Yeah, they are the same
Realised
ones.
a bit too late.
Oh, it's
actually,
lovely.
maybe
How
I'll
nice
just-
of you to come. Interdisciplinary. Yeah. And we also have them up here, but I don't know. Do we
And only the first
Oh,
part.
it's first. Shall we turn this on now? Or will you use it? Because if I touch it, it
Yeah,
dies.
Yep, that's good.
Is it? Yeah. And we will start by having a short passage read in the original. Is that what we said? Yeah.
I think we were going to introduce the characters.
Oh, we
weren't
do the characters
Yeah.
first. Okay, sorry.
That's what's on the PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's
behind you. Ah, okay. So this is a kind of a group novel, which is, a modernist enterprise, and it has lots and lots and lots of action in a way, lots of characters that intersect. And so we thought we would explain to you the various characters that appear in the book, so you get an idea of what is happening. And Ursula will start.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for inviting me here. I'm super happy to be here back in London. I'm quite nervous because it's the first time that I talk about the book in English. Usually I do it in German, so yeah, I try my best. To give you a short introduction, Lektionen in dunkler Materie. It's a novel about 5 women freaking out, basically. So this is the topic and the plot. We follow those 5 women through the novel. We meet them first, and then each of them is going to explode. Each of them reaches a point in her life where she cannot go further on her path, and she needs to just freak out. And then, of course, we see what happens after. How did this turn out? Was it a happy end, or was it a drama? We will see. It's different for each character. And when you read the novel, you will find out that those characters are interconnected with each other, looser or closer. So we decided that we give you a brief overlook of the characters. The novel starts with Ines Geiger, and she's working as an immigration officer in Vienna, and she's quite bored because this is a quite stressful office job. Her colleague has a burnout, so she has her stuff on her desk too. And it's a hot summer day. The novel is set in Vienna. If you know Vienna in the summer, you know what I'm talking about. It's 40 degrees, it's stinky, it's wet, and everybody is aggressive. So this is
One more message.
yeah. So this was the core idea, actually, of the novel, because it was in 2018, and it was one of the first record summers when this whole media rush started. We have this climate crisis, blah blah blah. And I was sitting at the Brunnenmarkt, actually, in Vienna, just having a coffee and just looking around, and I was just wondering why people still behave like human beings, and have their shit together. And then I started to imagine it would be fun to write a novel if people freak out, actually, if they're not.
That's actually one normal in my
Yeah. So Ines is working as this immigration officer. It's hot, and then at some point she has enough, and then she flips out, and then she decides to. Because her task is she has to reject people, of course. Yeah, she works for Austrian government, and her boss tells her to get rid of the people. So to make everything, to try everything to get them a negative certificate. Yeah. And at some point she decides, okay, she flips the thing around, and then suddenly she just makes positive Bescheide. Yeah. This is the first character. Then we have another character. This is Kata Lind. We see her on the cover. She's the astronaut working on the International Space Station up in the air, 400 kilometers above us. She has a little son, Linus, but Linus is living with her ex-wife, so she's quite lonely up there in the space. And I don't tell you what happens to her, but as you can imagine, a lonely, angry astronaut in the space is not such a good thing.
Although she has colleagues.
She has colleagues too, yeah. So one of her closest colleagues is Simon. It's a bot. Yeah. So kind of her replacement kid, colleague, friend. And Simon's task is he's kind of the psychological bot there. His task is to keep the astronauts, to control them, to watch out for them, and on their psychological well-behaving.
Yeah, he's a very sort of bossy bot.
He's a bossy bot, yeah.
What will introduce?
So yes, next we meet Milka, who works for an organization called No European Slaves. And when we first meet her, she's gone to pitch to it's a large retail company, isn't it? The corporation. And she works with Italian vegetable producers, growers. And the point of their organization is that they pay their workers properly, and you get your veg direct from the growers. And the reason that this company was started is because of Eve, who was a Cameroonian student who she studied with in Rome and fell in love with a little bit. And he spent a summer, because he couldn't get any other jobs, being from Africa, working on one of these farms where they basically used slave labor and they kept them in dreadful conditions. So this is Milka's mission in life, really. And she works with Eve and with another of their university friends, Emilia, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So next there is Haida, who is Linus's other mum. She is Catalin's ex. She is really having a hard time as a essentially single parent. She's struggling for money. She has no car currently because she wrote it off hitting a kangaroo on a country road.
Was that a truth?
Yeah, that's from the newspaper. It happened in Upper Austria. Don't ask me why in Upper Austria, but somewhere in Upper Austria.
So yes, she's dependent on the buses, and her work hours are too long to get the bus that would get her to kindergarten in time to pick Linus up. So she's constantly late and rushing around, and she turns up one day to collect Linus, and she decides she's had enough. They occupy the kindergarten. They just refuse to leave in protest. And Fatima is the unfortunate kindergarten teacher who is stuck in this situation, and she really wants to get home because she's got a date. I won't tell you with.
And she just leaves them to occupy the kindergarten. So this all sounds very, agitprop, but it's actually also very, very funny. They just sit down in the kindergarten and say, we're not moving. So it, leaves to me to introduce the last character called Esther. Esther is Kathalin's twin sister. She's 5 minutes younger. And so they can compare their respective aging processes. So being in space does, hello, what does Katalin? Apparently you age a little bit slower in space. But on the other hand, it's so hard that Katalin feels that she has got the rougher deal of the two. And Esther and Katalin's backstory is told in a chapter called The Ghost. They grew up in Hungary. And in the present of the narrative, Esther lives in Vienna. And she does work as a kind of crypto broker. I found it quite difficult to understand because I don't understand finances. She has an avatar called, in English, that is in English in the book, Desert Death Adder. And what she does is to take down big companies by sort of hedging bets against them and short selling and whatever you do, so to explode them. And the one she has set her eyes on is called Poseidon Industries. And these are people who, and I think that also happens, who sort of market water, sort of take water from water scarce areas and pack it in plastic and sell it. So, and she tries to destroy this company, and she succeeds. So the chapter is called Das Gespenst. So Esther is a bit of a ghost in that sense that she works in the shadows, but the actual ghost of the title is the mother. So Esther and Katalin's mother disappeared when they were children. She just left a little note saying sorry. That is the backstory, which I found really, really gripping. And so Katalin and Esther's father had to take over. I'll leave that out now because we cannot tell everything. But Milka has one of her big sort of what do you call it? I mean, she stages a sort of destroying of tomatoes in a supermarket. She throws all the tomatoes that are there and all the tins, and she is then brought to a prison and is interviewed by a policewoman. And that is why I was kind of really surprised. And it's a question to you. It turns out the policewoman is Esther. So we didn't learn that she's also, having a gig as a policewoman. So that's a real surprise, isn't it? Or not? Or did I miss a trick there?
Yeah, that's so she's just double-sided.
Yeah,
she is, right? She has her proper, she's a police officer, her proper life, and then she has her backside.
But she says at one point, Katalin has been so ambitious since the mother died, and she had all these grants, and she became a space woman, and I just did jobs I didn't want to. So I was surprised that she's actually doing a job as kind of, as steady as being a policewoman, but she is actually a really left-wing policewoman and actually tries to tell Milka how to do better protests, and she lets her go. So the novel is actually very, very complicated in that sense that you need to read it more than once to sort of realize all the connections that are made, which I think really is something in favor of the text. So Milka and Esther intersect here, and so do in the end Ines and should I not give that away?
Spoilers.
Okay, no spoilers. No spoilers. Okay. So I'll stop here. We have an idea what is happening, and it all comes to a sort of it all sort of intersects in various ways, and maybe we can talk about that later. I'll leave that. And now Ursula is going to read the prologue for us, so you can hear some German.
Der Aggregatzustand. Es lässt sich nicht sagen, was genau den Ersatzhandschuh dazu gebracht hatte, sich aus der Kiste zu lösen und von der Ladefläche im Inneren des Gemini 4 Raumschiffes langsam ins All hinauszuschweben. Jedenfalls bemerkte der Astronaut Edward White, ganz in seinen ersten Weltraumspaziergang vertieft, nichts von diesem Ereignis in seinem Rücken. Stoßweise bewegte er sich vorwärts, indem er mit seinem Pressluftgerät Tempo und Flugrichtung zu kontrollieren versuchte. Das nahm seine Konzentration derart in Anspruch, dass er nicht einmal mitbekam, wie sein linker Fuß den Verbindungsschlauch, den er an der Außenwand ausgetauscht hatte, zusammenquetschte. Eigenmächtig drückte der Fuß auf den Schlauch, um der inneren Anspannung des Astronauten ein Ventil zu verschaffen. Der Schlauch behielt eine Delle, die die Wasserzirkulation im Raumschiff später zwar beeinträchtigte, nicht aber unterband. Dieses Versäumnis konnte Edward White in weiterer Folge nicht zum Vorwurf gemacht werden, denn wer hätte in dieser Situation den Spürhundinstinkt aufgebracht, auch noch auf einen unbedeutenden Handschuh in der Ersatzteilkiste zu achten. Als Korrektur wurde in den Protokollen der darauffolgenden Missionen die Notiz hinzugefügt, Ersatzgewand niemals ungesichert zu verstauen und auf gar keinen Fall etwas rumschweben zu lassen. Der Handschuh entfernte sich inzwischen von seinem Zuhause, richtete es sich auf einer der Erdumlaufbahnen gemütlich ein und galt lange Zeit als gefährlichstes Kleidungsstück des Universums. Mit 28.000 Stundenkilometern, der gleichen Geschwindigkeit, mit der die Gemini 4 auf ihrer Umlaufbahn dahinglitt, raste er unkontrolliert durch das Weltall. Hätte er dabei einen anderen Körper getroffen, hätte er sich durch die freigesetzte Energie kurzzeitig wie eine Flüssigkeit verhalten, die diesen anderen Körper schockwellenartig durchrast. Bei einem Druck von Millionen Kilogramm pro Quadratzentimeter verflüssigen sich feste Stoffe wie Metall und Plastik und verdampfen wie Quecksilber an der Sonne. Der getroffene Körper wäre zerrissen, der Satellit, die Raumstation oder der Versorgungstransporter zu unkontrollierbar schwebenden Einzelteilchen zersiebt, ein paar Menschenleben ausgelöscht, ein paar weitere beschädigt, GPS-Systeme und Datenübertragung auf der Erde lahmgelegt, Illusionen verletzt, Eitelkeiten vernichtet. Während der Astronaut White ein paar Jahre später beim unglücklichen Start einer anderen Mission verbrannte, raste der Handschuh einsam, ohne weiteren Zwischenfall vor sich hin. Er behielt seinen Aggregatzustand bei, bis er schließlich friedlich in die Erdatmosphäre absank, wo er leise verglühte. Im Großen und Ganzen hatten die Menschen im Kosmos also nochmal ganz schön Schwein gehabt.
Danke. I looked it all up, it's all true, actually. Not that it matters, but I was curious that it is true.
Yeah, actually, I was reading a lot of newspapers, so a lot of the stories here in this novel, I was just consuming newspapers.
Yeah.
So maybe just the little story with the kangaroo in Upper Austria.
I love that. No, it all sounds so fantastic. Then I looked it up. Is there a glove in space? Yes, there was a glove in space. Was there a kangaroo? Yes, there was a kangaroo. I'm not sure about the tomatoes.
No tomatoes, no.
You had some.
Yeah. Should we go straight on to that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was inspired by the presence of Simon in the book to think about machine translation, which is also one of my kind of current hobby horses. So I thought I would ask Google Translate and DeepL to see what they made of the first few lines of this.
What's the second one called? DeepL?
DeepL
DeepL.
or DeepL, people say, but you know. So yeah, I wondered first of all if you can tell which one of these was translated by a human. Hands up if you think it's A. Okay, I'll go. Yeah.
You also can always speak. I have to say that you're then on the recording, so you consented, but you can always say something.
I mean, they are all, I think, perfectly adequate translations.
Is one of them yours?
One of them is mine, yeah. If you've got the translation sat in front of you, you will know, so like, don't look at it. But that's kind of what's interesting at the moment, because machine translation is pretty good at this point. But there's stuff that it doesn't know yet, and stuff that it doesn't spot. And I think it's more interesting to look at it when it is actually adequate, because sometimes it makes a complete hash of things. But
This
I
is
think with this,
easy, and I don't
yeah.
dare say anything because I say the second one is yours and it's a machine, so I'm not gonna say anything because I can't remember.
Okay, should we do a poll now? Hands up if you think it's number 1. Is the human one? Okay, yeah. Okay, there's a few hands. All right. Hands up who thinks it's number 2.
It's not the human one.
No, is the human one.
It's the number 2.
No, that's my question. That is my question.
It's not.
You think it's 1? Yeah.
Okay. And if you think it's number 3? Okay, it is number 2. So yeah, most people did say number 2. But I wanted to point out some things that. So number 1 is Google Translate, and number 3 is DeepL. And Google Translate, I think, is generally accepted as being kind of the least sophisticated, but it's done this pretty well, I think. But things that machines don't know. One, which is a weird thing for machines not to know, actually, is that detach is a transitive verb in English. You cannot just detach. You have to detach something, a direct object, even if it's detaching itself. Yeah, to detach from the box.
What, you can't say that?
No. It's a transitive verb. I mean, maybe if, I don't know, maybe American English is different. I don't know, but certainly not here. Okay, thanks.
I just think the trick here is that most of us are German native speakers, and if this was all in German, I might find it easier.
Yeah, but
No,
you can't tell. Yeah.
It's true. Not so sure.
Okay, so the second thing is the chronology of English sentences. So in the second line from the top, where the glove detaches from the box and slowly floats out into space from the loading area, English usually prefers chronological order in sentences. So you would float from the loading area out into space rather than the other way around. But apparently the machines don't know that. There's also, in the second sentence, the start of the second sentence, there's just too many commas in the machine version. It makes the sentence feel very choppy. It breaks it up. In any case, comma, astronaut Edward White, comma, fully immersed in his first spacewalk, comma, that's too much. And so I've got rid of one of those in my. There's also too many instances of the word space, because it's different words in German, but it can only really be the same one in English. So the machines have float out into space from the spacecraft and immersed in his first spacewalk. And I mean, I did ask Ursula before I took spacecraft out, but I didn't think it was necessary. I thought we know where we are, right? We know what the Gemini 4 is.
But you thought in German you'd need the Raumschiff.
No, you do not have the problem in German. You have
Yeah.
so many
Different words.
So you have Raum
Yeah.
twice and then Al, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fine. And then right on the last line, the machines have gone with event, unaware of this event behind him. German is very noun heavy, where English prefers verbs. So that it sounds much more natural in English to say what was happening rather than the event, I think. And this is why I'm better than a machine. In conclusion.
Sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because that's totally not how the machine works with grammar rules. So for a very long time, they tried to program grammar rules into computers to apply them, which didn't work at all. So now they work on a statistical basis. What you're proving here is that grammar rules, you're basically explaining grammar rules that the machine doesn't know.
Yeah.
That kind of approach.
That's what I thought was weird, because I
Yeah.
thought that's something, that it's a rule. Machines do
well, they
rules,
don't
right?
follow rules. They follow statistics. Yeah, so that's a good point, I think.
I mean, to sort of make a short text understandable, this would work, but you can't read a book translated like that, really. It wouldn't give you a proper, sense of the language at all.
Yeah, it would be okay. But
Did you work with machines at all? Or?
I sometimes put a sentence through DeepL if it's just really confusing or I want another idea, a second opinion. Yeah. But I probably won't use what comes out of it. I will rewrite it myself.
But what this also shows to me, it's slightly unrelated. No matter how many decades you use a different language, English in my case, there's some things you'll never know, like a native, like somebody who's learned it as a baby. It's it's true.
What is it with replacement and spare? Is this different? A spare glove or replacement glove? Or is it?
I mean, I think spare is more normal English, but it doesn't really matter. I don't think that's an issue in the first one necessarily.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That sounds a bit odd with replacement glove. Oh, no. I don't know.
Okay. That's what I've got next on the PowerPoint.
We thought to make it more entertaining for you, we'll read this next very short bit, but we'll read it with roles. Your mama, yeah?
And my mama, yeah.
It starts, I don't on that. The sheet, so that's the last passage on the copy. Yeah, the sheet.
So we find ourselves in the kindergarten now. Yeah? Heide is there with her son Linus, and Fatima, she's working. Fatima?
Yeah.
Mama? Narrator. Die Mama ist aufgestanden, nimmt Linus an der Hand, zieht ihn mit sich in den großen Aufenthaltsraum. Anscheinend gehen sie heute später nach Hause. Das wird Fatima nicht gefallen. Die Mama legt sich auf eine Matratze in die Kuschelecke, streichelt Linus den Rücken, sieht ihn groß an.
Was wollen wir jetzt machen?
Fragt sie und streckt sich auf der Matratze aus.
Etwas Ruhiges,
sagt sie, ohne abzuwarten, was Linus vorschlägt. Linus sieht sich um. Ein Puzzle wäre ruhig, aber er ist sich nicht sicher, ob Fatima nicht zu schimpfen beginnt, wenn er eines der Puzzles aus der Lade nimmt, wo sie doch schon alle für den Tag weggeräumt haben. Auf den Versuch kommt es an. Er geht zur Lade und zieht das Wimmelbild-Puzzle mit dem Zoo heraus. Ihre mag die Mama. Er dreht es um, die Teile purzeln auf den Teppich, die Mama ist schnell beim Umdrehen der einzelnen Teile, vielleicht ist sie doch noch nicht so müde. Linus sucht die Ecken und Randstücke heraus. Erst diesen Sommer hat Jako ihm das gezeigt. Ein Puzzle ist eine ernste Angelegenheit, besonders dann, wenn die Mama mitmacht. Das muss man mit Plan angehen, nicht einfach so drauf los. Linus hat die Fatima ganz vergessen. Bewegungslos sitzt er und sortiert die Teile. Das Geschepper in der Küche hört auf. Die Küche verschwindet leise hinter dem großen Aufenthaltsraum, wie wenn sie ein Haus weitergegangen wäre. Da steht die Fatima plötzlich im Raum, dreht das Licht auf. Linus schreckt auf, die Mama schlichtet die Teile unbeeindruckt weiter.
Was soll das?
Fragt die Fatima laut.
Ich dachte, sie wären schon gegangen.
Wir bleiben,
sagt die Mama beiläufig und schaut nicht von den Puzzleteilen auf. Die Fatima lacht. Linus blickt hoch. Er lässt sich von ihrem Lachen anstecken. Nur die Mama bleibt sehr, sehr ernst.
Ich schließe jetzt ab,
sagt die Fatima, dreht sich um, verschwindet in der Garderobe. Die Schlapfen der Fatima schlagen ungeduldig auf den Boden, als ob sie mit 10 Füßen zappeln würden. Der Fatima-Schlüssel scheppert wütend zwischen ihren Fingern. Die Jacke springt vom Haken hoch und verschlingt ihre Arme. Dann steht die Fatima wieder im Raum. Mit den Straßenschuhen macht sie ein paar große Schritte zu Mama und Linus. Linus erstarrt. Das ist gegen Fatimas Gesetz. Jedes Kind weiß, dass Straßenschuhe unter keinen Umständen in den großen Raum eingelassen werden.
Was ist jetzt?
Fragt die Fatima.
Wir bleiben.
Sagt die Mama.
Das geht nicht.
Sagt die Fatima.
Natürlich geht das.
Erwidert die Mama.
Bitte kommen Sie jetzt endlich.
Wiederholt die Fatima.
Das ist nichts Persönliches.
Beruhigt die Mama.
Schließen Sie ruhig ab.
Das kann ich nicht.
Sagt Fatima. Der Schuh ihres rechten Fußes trommelt gegen den Boden.
Gehen Sie nach Hause.
Sagt die Mama und dreht sich zum Puzzle zurück.
Sie sollen gehen.
Zischt die Fatima. Jetzt schon viel lauter.
Ich habe doch gesagt, dass wir bleiben.
Sagt die Mama. Nichts passiert. Die Fatima steht da und schaut ratlos in den Raum. Die Mama findet zueinander passende Teile. Sie tippt Linus an, das nächste Teil anzustecken. Ein halber Giraffenkopf grinst beide an. Linus drückt mit dem Daumen das Auge der Giraffe im Loch fest.
Was tun Sie da?
Fragt die Fatima und lässt sich auf einen Kindersessel fallen, der unter ihrer Jacke verschwindet.
Besetzen.
Sagt die Mama und zwinkert Linus zu. Besetzen, wiederholt Linus und betastet das Wort in seinem Mund. Er kennt es nicht. Auch in keiner der Kinderbuchgeschichten kommt es vor. So wie die Mama aussieht, macht sie diese Art von Sitzen aber jedenfalls viel fröhlicher als sonst. Die große Fatima scheint es auch nicht zu kennen.
Was heißt denn besetzen?
Zischt sie wütend. Sie sieht die Mama dabei nicht an.
Ich kann so nicht weitermachen. Wenn ich arbeite, kann ich nicht rechtzeitig hier sein. Wenn ich rechtzeitig hier sein soll, kann ich nicht arbeiten. Wenn ich nicht arbeite, kann ich die Wohnung nicht halten. Wenn ich die Wohnung nicht halte, kann ich nicht arbeiten. Wegen der Arbeitszeit, dem Busplan, den Kindergartenöffnungszeiten. Das geht nicht gegen Sie persönlich. Wir machen jetzt damit Schluss. So einfach ist das.
Die Mama setzt sich auf ihre Knie, nestelt an der Matratze herum, zieht mit einem einzigen Ruck das weiße Spannleintuch herunter und breitet es zwischen ihren Armen aus.
Ja.
Und Ruth, du hast das zu übersetzen.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Ursula a question actually about this. Why did you choose a child's eye view for these passages? Because we're looking from Linus's point of view rather than Heide's at all this going on.
Exactly.
I just thought it was really interesting.
Yeah. Actually, it was for personal reasons because I'm a dramatist, so I come from the theater, and in theater I never could do this. Yeah? So it was just a game for myself. It was my debut novel, and I allowed. So I did a very tight construction with this. Okay, explosion. What happens before? What happens after? This is the architecture of the novel. But within this architecture, I allowed myself to just play around and do everything I could not do by then. Yeah. So I really wanted to focalize by a children's gaze, because it allows a different kind of language, and it allows different metaphors, right? Like those, I don't know, those the tapping feet or something. An adult would not, I think, notice bold like this, right? But it works with a child focalization. So it was just fun to write.
And I love those metaphors of the jacket leaping off the hook and gobbling up her arms. I think that's very.
Also it was quite filmic. Und he's in the supermarket, and you just see the mouth open of the cashier and things like that. But,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was just
But why do you think you can't do it in theater? Because you can't have children perform. Or?
Yes. Yeah. In theater, I had always to consider how can you put it on stage, right? Because if you're a rather unknown writer, you do not have to have more characters than 3 because nobody would pay for it. Yeah, so you have to deal with this. Yeah, and of course you would not take a child as a character.
So you can do everything in the novel.
Yeah, so this is why I went to space. And I took the boy, and And also the other reason was because I thought it's really interesting to confront his perspective, the child perspective of the adult perspective. Yeah, you can, because this was another game in the novel, of course, yeah, with all those characters. We always follow the story by one character. But then when the other character comes into the same scene, we have a different perspective, right? Yeah.
But also the characters are very different when they interact with different people. Because, yeah. Like when Ines, the strict immigration officer, later meets Fatima, she seems a totally different person.
Yeah.
So that's also interesting. I guess that's what novels do, but it's not one person developing, which is a bit of a cliche, but they all, I think, very different sides.
Depending on the situation, depending on who they meet.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, of course, Linus has these two fighting moms, right? And they have the drama and split up drama, and then it's nice to retell this whole drama from the perspective of the child, right?
Yeah, I really love how you've done it, because I think having a child's perspective is like, it's quite a fine line to walk, because sometimes children can be made to sound like too precocious, like knowing things that they shouldn't really know at that age, but Linus doesn't, and it doesn't sound disingenuous either, because you've got this third person narration, so that's slightly removed. It is his perspective, but it's slightly removed from him.
Yeah.
But this is what I wanted to say really with this passage, is that this is so fun to translate.
Yeah.
Because it's different. Like, all of the characters have these different voices. It's the third person narrator throughout, but they have different tones, and every time you start a different chapter, you're like, ooh, this is a new challenge.
Okay. Okay, good.
But and it's quite subtle as well. I mean, you say about the metaphors, but I was thinking with Linus in particular, there were things that I wanted to do to make it sound more like his perspective. So I've kind of gone for child vocabulary, like Fatima won't tell him off. And maybe more sort of informal language. So sort of halfway down after the ellipsis there, you need a plan. You can't just go at it any old how. So there are different ways that I could have done that, but I've and really sort of small choices that I think add up, like saying the big playroom, when you've got a choice between big and large, but big is the child word. And in that last line as well, like it's gone to the house next door, whereas you could say as if it's gone to the house next door. That would be the more, I guess, grown up or proper way to do it.
Okay, it's the same in German. Yeah, you would say als ob sie ein Haus weitergegangen wäre, right? Would be the grown-up version. And wie wenn is like you talk in the kindergarten. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's all I wanted to say about this really. But it's the challenge of doing a group novel. I know I haven't translated the whole thing, but the little bits that I have done have been really fun to just pick out that very nuanced vocabulary and sentence structures.
Okay, nice. That makes me happy.
And another compliment I can say is that I read the novel quickly a couple of years ago, and then when I read it again, I realized I didn't actually understand that they all intersect in various ways. Yeah? So you have to really pay attention, and that's quite ingeniously done, because they and at some point Milka, Ines, and Esther are all in the same room towards the end. And another real challenge for translation would actually be the Vogt Simon. Because he speaks very sort of authoritative, doesn't he? And there's so many different voices.
Maybe you could just put that through DeepL. Maybe that would be a funny way to do it. Yeah.
Shall I give the mystery away of the glove? Because there is it does turn up again. Or not?
Yeah, good.
Because if I understand it correctly, so Katalin is in space with the bot Simon, but also with two human colleagues. And because she wants to check on the plants which are threatened with mold that she's growing on in space, she puts on the space suit, which is very difficult. And she's the only one in a space suit. And suddenly her two colleagues are dead. They are just floating. They have probably suffocated. And what might be a possible reason for their death is that they're hit by the glove that is floating in space. So in the beginning, in the prologue that Ursula read, it says, es hätte schief gehen können. So you imagine that it actually did, that this glove actually hit that spaceship. And so the end is all about whether Katalin can be saved or not. And we're not sure whether she can be retrieved from space. So still read it. It's really good. That is the sort of quite exciting development towards the end. I've got a couple questions, but only if there are no questions from you. You're welcome to ask any questions about the text or the work of translation, if you have any.
Oh, it would be nice to hear another voice. I mean, because this is so impressive, this voice, but maybe do you have a section where you have another voice?
We do have one more passage. You mean in translation?
Yeah.
Just you do have to just
Well,
We have
ideally.
Fatima.
we have
We have
Ursula.
Ines.
Ines.
We have
We
Ines.
have Ines too.
And Dark Matter.
Yeah.
Well, we were going to read this at the end, but
I could read a little bit from Ines. Poor Ines, she always gets overlooked.
it's that's the poor
That's the
bastard.
point, yeah.
Yeah.
But shall we read that just in English or?
Yeah, read it in English.
I just read a couple of
Okay.
paragraphs maybe
Yeah.
too.
Can we turn this off? Are we through with the slides?
So we are back with Ines, the immigration officer.
We are. She is having a bad day as well. How is she supposed to help out with Constanza's work and get through her own allocation when she's constantly being held up by training sessions and extra tasks? And all of that while hungry to boot because someone here keeps snaffling her lunch. She looks at the clock. The day will drag on. She will have to serve out hour after hour here yet. What do I do about the cat now? She clicks on the decision she's already begun, checks the commas and spelling. Then in the middle of the text, she stops. Something is corseting her chest. She gets up, takes a deep breath, sits back down. The pressure increases. She gets up again, walks to the window, then back to the door, paces back and forth. The sun is burning down on the ring road. There are no people to be seen. Time seems endless. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. There is no rhythm to her breathing. She looks at the two black towers of folders. They seem to be growing towards the ceiling. You know what? She can hear her own voice talking to her. It's a powerful voice. You want files? You'll get the fucking files. She sits back down on the padded chair, presses delete. The cursor gobbles up the black characters. The white page is calming. She starts to type. Application accepted. Reason, : You are young, male, and healthy. What's the problem? Make something of yourself. Date issued. Signature.
Read one more bit.
Okay, one more paragraph. She opens the next document. The young Iranian woman with the small, annoying child. She only has a vague memory of the details. She skim reads the transcript. Whatever. Name, date of birth, date of application. Application accepted. Reason, your child understands German better than the language spoken in your home country. This can be inferred from the fact that questioning via an interpreter was impossible. The child was withdrawn and did not answer any of his questions. In addition, the child did not enter the country illegally, since the authorities cannot hold a fetus responsible for this action. The child is not to be separated from the mother, so permission to stay is granted. Date issued, signature.
So she gives positive decision to everybody. Very good translation. What happens to her, you think, after she did that? She gets fired.
So also those parts of it was really interesting how he translated it, because I took it from the newspaper actually. So this is all of those parts of the certificates she files. It was a big story. It was kind of the summer news.
But that happened.
Yeah, this. So this did not really happen. No. But this kind of language I took from the newspaper because they made it public how these files are formulated. It was in the Standard in 2018. It was the big summer news, and they put excerpts in the newspaper to show how those offices work and how the argumentation works. So this is this kind of German, this bureaucratic German, to argue why people can stay or not stay, just to make the argument, which has nothing to do with the actual case. So it was fun just to take it and then to turn it upside down, right? You can make the same argument with this, because it's absurd anyways. The kid talks in English or in German or it does not. It's the same. They just make an argument out of it.
There was one bit where I thought I had actually read about this. Her boss is a real asshole, and he says something about somebody cannot be gay because of
he does not act gay.
He does not act gay. And I think I read something like that.
Exactly. This was
true.
This was true and taken from the newspaper. This was a big scandal back then in Vienna.
But he also says why he doesn't act gay. He gives a really silly example. I've forgotten.
The argument is he pretends that he had kissed a guy, but is not gay. And why would a heterosexual guy ever kiss a man? This is such a lie. This cannot be true.
Oh, okay, yeah. There was some, and I had read some. It's really absurd. I mean, we've got like about 10 more minutes, 5 minutes. I had a general question that you can, it's not, but I mean, it strikes one as sort of very engaged political writing. What do you make of that? I mean, do you believe in any sort of distinction between political writing or non-political writing? It's more sort of, you can answer it or you cannot answer it. I mean, tomorrow is World Women's Day and so on, and it does strike one as a sort of it sort of collects all the sort of concerns, but in a funny way, and but there's the environment, there's the heat, which is very real, there is the terrible Asylpolitik. So, do you see yourself as a sort of an Aufklärerin or not?
I'm a very political person. I'm just really interested in. I consider myself as a feminist, but I wanted to do something funny. It's not this woke, moralized political thing. But I wanted just to take it because to put it in a different way. It's just for myself like a game to sort my thoughts. And the task with this novel for me was really to. Like all people say, we are in this poly-crisis, right? We have all of this crisis at the same time, and we are overwhelmed by all of this, and it happens at the same time. So I wanted to find a literary form for it. This was the task. So I could not pick one thing, like climate crisis, and then one character and put it through. This was not the design. This design was find a way to show this simultaneity. Of all of those crises. So we have migration, we have this financial capitalism, we have this the pollution of the space, and then the unpaid reproductive work stacked with women. So I decided, okay, those are my 5 topics, and then I found a character, and then yeah, let's,
Like a puzzle.
yeah, like a puzzle, and let's open the game, and then those characters meet, and what happens?
It's a really, really good read.
Yeah.
And what's your new novel about?
The new novel. I really liked. Okay, I learned today the terms group novel. Like group novel means you have different episodes and characters. doesn't
Yeah,
it?
different intersecting characters. I think it goes back to Dos Passos and Manhattan
Okay,
Transfer.
perfect. Finally, I got a term. So I will do another group novel because I just like the form. It's really playful, and it makes fun to write it because I have to remember myself. Okay, what was her name again? What was the connection? Whatever. So you have to, yeah. As a reader, you have to do it as a writer as well. Yeah. You have to focus and be concentrated for the little details and to make no logical mistakes. This is what I like about it. It's just like computer gaming in a way.
What are they called in film when they make mistakes? Continuity errors.
Yeah.
Continuity errors.
You pick quite a lot of those up as a translator as well, because you read a book so closely that you pick up things that copy editors haven't picked up in German.
Did you get into arguments about it?
Occasionally. No, they're always very nice about it.
So I will stick to the form of the group novel. 6 female characters, but this time I go back in time to the 19th century. And the topic is sugar, actually the sugar trade. Yeah, so main focus is the development of the beet sugar industry in Austria, rural Austria Burgenland, because I love the Burgenland.
They have sugar?
Yeah, there was a beet sugar industry.
There
was, yeah. Now it all declined in the 20th century, but there was this big battle between the cane sugar coming from London and the beet sugar industry, the rising. And I thought this is this is like a crime story, it's a suspense story. It's really fascinating how these two industries battled with each other, and you have this whole slavery issue and all of it on this, and then sugar, this like something that is sweet and poisonous at the same time, and deadly. Yeah, so it's a very
sounds great.
Yeah.
Is Rübenzucker still used at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Wiener Zucker. The brand is the Wiener Zucker, the Magyar Zucker. You have it in all those countries. It's
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, so it will come out next spring if I finish it by autumn. But yeah, when I go back home on the weekend, I will go back and work again.
Well, if you have no questions, you would read for us the last bit.
So let's go to the depressive part for the ending. Yes, super.
Where is it?
So dunkle Materie.
Yeah, so now we finish by going to the International Space Station to Katalin, the astronaut, and our little depressive, lonesome astronaut. Dunkle Materie. Sich hier im Weltraum innig küssen, das wäre schwierig. Schweben wir aufeinander zu und pressen unsere Lippen aneinander, prallen wir voneinander ab, stoßen gegen Wände oder hervorstehende Kanten, holen uns ein paar Blutergüsse und Beulen. Wir müssten uns aneinander binden, mit Fußfesseln fixieren, die Finger ineinander verkeilen, an den Haaren festhalten. Draußen vor der Raumstation wäre das Küssen sogar tödlich. Wenn man das Visier öffnet, ist es vorbei. Minus 200 Grad und Vakuum, dem hält niemand stand. Es soll jedenfalls sehr schnell gehen. Katalin starrt durch das riesige Fenster der Cupola der ISS. Weiße Wolkenbänder ziehen sich wirbelförmig über den blauen Planeten, der ihr zu Füßen schwebt. Ein riesiger hellblauer Ozean. Es ist nicht bekannt, wie viel hier auf der Station schon geküsst worden ist, ob überhaupt je geküsst worden ist, wer mit wem Sex hatte, ob jemand mit jemandem Sex hatte, ob das gewollt war oder nicht. Solche Dinge stehen weder in den offiziellen Berichten noch in den Tagebüchern. Auch kein Videoblog zeigt das. Der einzige Kuss, der aus dem Sonnensystem weit hinaus in die Weiten des interstellaren Raums reicht, ist die Aufnahme eines Kusses auf den Schallplatten der beiden Voyager-Sonden, die von Außerirdischen gefunden werden sollen, um ihnen etwas von unserer Welt zu erzählen. Es ist nicht klar, ob sich jemals irgendein Wesen dafür interessieren wird, oder was es mit diesem Wissen dann anfangen soll. Statistische Erfahrungswerte keine. Katalin schiebt ihren Laptop auf die Seite, er baumelt neben ihrem rechten Ellbogen. Sie spürt Heidis Lippen auf den ihren. Wie viele Monate ist das jetzt her, bevor die ganze Geschichte? Nun gut. Es ist schwer, 8 Jahre mit dir gelebt zu haben und keine Zwetschge zu sein. Rosine, eher. Glieder hängen und stehen an mir herum. Keine Ahnung, was ich damit anfangen soll. Die zerfressene Haut eines Liebeskummers, der nicht abpellt. Von hier oben wirkt es, als gäbe es auf der Erde immer nur Kaiserwetter. Nie scheint es zu regnen oder zu schneien. Lediglich den Tag-Nacht-Rhythmus kann man beobachten. Katalin wickelt sich die Landschaft ums Gesicht. 3 Farben. Blau und Weiß, in der Nacht dann das tiefe Schwarz. Es ist anzunehmen, dass auf lange Sicht die Quallen gewinnen werden. Die einzige irdische Population, die etwas zu feiern hat, der Mensch am Grunde seines Luftteichs blöd und stur nicht davon abzubringen ist, den kleinen Planeten auszuquetschen und zu schinden, bis die Kettenreaktionen ineinandergreifen und den lästigen Parasiten abwerfen. Ungeheuer, gieriges. Es ist entschieden und nur noch eine Frage der Zeit. Katalin steht auf, presst ihr Gesicht gegen eine der großen Scheiben. Das Glas ist kalt und abweisend. Sich im Weltraum innig küssen, den totenstillen Kosmos ausfüllen mit der Sehnsucht, die uns einmal aufeinander zutreiben ließ. Aus der Luke hinausschweben, sich an das freie Schweben gewöhnen, kleine, feine Bewegungen, mit denen wir uns nähern. Die Schwerelosigkeit erlaubt weder viel Kraft noch Geschwindigkeit. Ich strecke vorsichtig die Hand aus, um dich zu berühren. Wir lassen uns in den hellblauen Ozean fallen. Post aus dem All, die Heidi nie bekommen wird. Der Schmerz perlt wie Quecksilber ab und bleibt an der äußersten Hautschicht haften. In kleinen toxischen Kapseln. Weder fest noch flüssig. Dunkel und ganz still. Alles nur Geschichten mit schönem, glänzendem Licht beschmiert. Im Grunde ist es nicht so idyllisch gewesen, die große Liebe das Nachweinen nicht wert. Wenn Katalin sich das einreden könnte. Sie drückt sich von der Scheibe ab, macht einen Salto, bleibt schief im Raum hängen. Danke.